Welcome back, viewers, to the Tobago Updates Morning Show. And we have in studio with us this morning Councillor Tashia Burris, who is the Secretary of the Division of Tourism, Culture, Antiquities and Transportation. Good morning and welcome, Secretary.
Good morning, Akinlabi, and thank you so much for the welcome. Good morning, Tobago. Good morning, viewers all over the world. Share the live, share the live, share the live. Thank you for being here this morning.
So, Secretary, we saw that recently the cruise season would have come to an end, cruise season 2024-2025.
Yes.
What are your thoughts on the cruise
My
season?
thoughts. Well, you know, cruise tourism is a very important part of our tourism ecosystem on the island of Tobago. So whereas some people focus on our landed international passengers, or there are some persons focus more on our domestic product, the cruise tourism is something that Tobago has, I think, as one of our competitive advantages. This year, we welcomed just over 40 ships to the island of Tobago that brought just over 50,000 visitors to our shores, and that those persons not only experience sun, sand and sea and everything that Tobago had to offer. They went on tours, they did food excursions, they immersed themselves in what makes Tobago so unique, so unspoiled, so untouched. Feedback that I've gotten from some persons indicates that they love the destination. Tobago remains one of those destinations that are top of mind for persons. Certainly, they also made recommendations as to how we could continue to improve our product, recommendations on how we could improve our port infrastructure, recommendations on how we could improve our attractions. But all in all, a very robust season, not like the season before where we welcomed almost double that amount because we had that amount of ships coming into the destination. And one thing about cruise tourism is that it always fluctuates. There is no static number of ships that comes every season. So some seasons may be good for some reasons, some seasons may be a little bit quieter. So this season was a little bit quieter, but all in all, I think a very successful season. As far as I'm aware, we received no reports of any injuries or any negative incidents against our visitors, and I think that is a huge plus because previous season we had some challenges where persons fell ill on the ship. They had to get local medical attention, but so far for this season I have not received any negative reports in terms of anybody falling ill or anybody, you know, having any incidents while on land or anything that happened to them negatively. So I'm happy for that. I always see that as a success, and we look forward to next year's cruise ship season after we've done our postmortem this year, spoken to our stakeholders, get an idea of what more we can do, put some training in place, and obviously put things in place for next year.
So, Secretary, you mentioned things being a bit smoother in terms of coordination than the previous season. Can you just speak to us about what the division would have done to make that coordination and that synergy between the various stakeholders much better this season?
So there was more communication taking place this year in terms of pulling people into meetings very early. We also offered training at the very beginning of the season for the major actors who are in the space. So we're talking about the taxi drivers, the persons who operate as tour guides, the persons who are frontward facing staff when it comes to specifically dealing with cruise passengers. And I feel that training certainly helps to prepare people for the season ahead of them. And also, you know, you always want to foster collaboration amongst your stakeholders. And coming out of last season where there was some challenges with the transportation and things like that, there was a lot more, I think, communication taking place across all of the actors. Certainly, we would always want to be in a position where everything goes smoothly. You know, we have some very passionate stakeholders, I would say that. But the passion extends to them only just simply wanting the best for Tobago and wanting to put Tobago's best foot forward. So I have to take the opportunity to congratulate all of our stakeholders who came together, they banded together, they made the season a resounding success. I also want to say congratulations to the Tobago Performing Arts Company, which created history, having been the first group in Tobago to perform a full-length, a feature-length production on one of our cruise vessels that docked. I think that augurs well for our creative sector and our orange economy. It shows that Tobago has a repository of talent. We're overflowing with talent, and for the TPAC to be able to go on board the residence cruise ship, to be able to give that stellar performance, to come away with rave reviews, it says to us that we have the ingredients to get it right in Tobago. We just have to make sure and massage that and make sure that next year and the years beyond that we continue to improve on the products that we offer.
So, Secretary, you mentioned that upcoming, the postmortem
Yes.
for the cruise season is upcoming.
Yes.
What are some of the issues that you see that the division and the stakeholders could build upon working towards bettering?
So the beautiful thing about having the postmortem is that we will have our counterparts from the Port Authority of Trinidad and Tobago present. I spoke to the CEO over the weekend and he has indicated that he would be present. So we would get the opportunity to raise some of our concerns where the cruise ship infrastructure is concerned with him directly. And certainly we will be able to hear from him what plans are up in place to improve the general infrastructure of the port. Because one of the things that puts people or positions destinations where cruise shipping is concerned is two things: excellent cruise port infrastructure, and that's not just the infrastructure to berth the vessels, but we're talking about things like duty free and things like that. And in addition to that, very excellent attractions in the destination. So Tobago has the opportunity to build on the two things. One, improving our cruise ship port infrastructure, and we would hope that one of the plans, especially with this new government coming in, is that we would really look at building out cruise ship infrastructure in Tobago that will encourage more ships to dock to the destination, and certainly having a duty-free section on the port as part of its operations will be a huge plus for us. In addition to that, we continue to improve upon our attractions that belong to the Division of Tourism, Culture, Antiquities and Transportation. But in a few weeks' time, we would actually be launching our Community Sustainable Tourism Development Grant Program. And what that does is that for each of the 15 electoral districts, we want to get the area representative working with a group, working with persons within their communities to develop a new tourism attraction. So the idea is that once we get these projects on board, that is 15 new attractions that we're hoping to bring into the space before the advent of the next cruise ship season. So that persons who have been coming to Tobago for a number of years and they've been going to the regular things, they're going to Plymouth, they're going to see the Mystery Tombstone, they're going to Storway, they're going to Pigeon Point, they're going to the Cocoa Estate, they're going to Argyle Waterfall, which are the main attractions that are on offer. We would want to be able to say and communicate to them, hey, there are 15 brand new attractions that we're bringing on board within our communities, because we see the importance of community-based tourism and how that drives economies within communities. So we are excited to see some of the projects that are coming out. I already have seen a proposal for a heritage park in honor of Royal Titus in Mount St. George. I've also seen a project to do 2 play parks in Lambo and Lowlands. There's also the Gangang Sarah grave in Golden Lane, which we would want to do some work at. So I'm very excited to see the projects that the area reps and their community persons would be coming up with, and certainly excited to be able to announce to Tobago what those 15 projects are, so that Tobagonians, Trinidadians, all persons who love all things Tobago can now have 15 new things to do on destination.
I wanted to go delve more into that idea of the community tourism projects, because it sounds very, very interesting. How do you see community tourism really impacting not just the tourism product that we have, but also the communities themselves? How do you see transforming those communities?
So we've done this before. This is not us reinventing the wheel. When you talk about community-based tourism, and the best example of it working, it's really Castara. So when you think about a community that has embraced all ideas of what tourism brings to the table, tourism and culture brings to the table, it's really that Castara model that we talk about is really the ideal place that we want to aim for, where Castara has become world-renowned. You know, there are people who have been staying at Castara for the last 15, 20 years straight. They've seen nothing else on the island except to land in the airport and go straight to Castara. In fact, I don't even say they're coming to Tobago, they say they're going Castara. And that is how Castara has become so successful, and without government intervention. This was literally the persons in the community deciding, here what, we have some natural assets here. We have a beautiful beach, we have a fishing industry, we have artisans, we have culture, we have events, you know, let us invest in ourselves. So, you know, persons started improving their homes, people started adding on, you know, people got together, they borrowed money, they pooled their resources, and, you know, they started to build this model. So the model was accommodation. Let's see if we can get some accommodation in this space. And the accommodation is not what people would think of in terms of a sandals and a 6-star and a 7-star, but they understood what their guests were looking for. So they did their research and they realized that people coming to Castara wanted to have a more laid-back experience. They want to have comfort. You know, it's not necessarily necessarily about bright lights and a lot of noise, and they come into Castara to unwind, to experience something that they don't experience back home. So a lot of thought went into having accommodations that were more rustic, that were more in line with nature, more in line with the aesthetic of the community. And then obviously you have persons who will then set up shops, they'll set up restaurants, a cafe, and then you have the persons who are doing tours. So now they're offering more things. So when you come to Castara, you could go on a tour, you could go out on the reef, you have the stingrays that are coming up, and that has become an attraction over the years. And even just to relax, just to unwind, we all know what Castara gives. And when you consider that someone who visits the community of Castara, spending all of their money in Castara, because they are paying for their accommodation, they're staying there. The taxi driver most likely picking them up from the airport is from Castara. They are shopping in the shops right there in the village. They are staying in the places there. They are patronizing the restaurants and the cafes. So all of the money that a visitor would spend who comes to Castara is actually staying in that ecosystem, the dirt oven bread. So that, even that has become an attraction, the hiking to the waterfalls. So they've really done their homework, and they've done such an excellent job in terms of even marketing Castara. And as I said, all of that was done without government intervention. And we've always talked about how do we replicate the Castara model across the island of Tobago. And the thing that really kind of makes Castara unique is the experience that they give. Every single villager is on board with ensuring that persons come back to Castara, so that you're going to pass in the road and you're going to get smiles, you're going to get that A-class service, you're going to get everything that you dream of when you pay for a vacation and walk away feeling like if you got value for your money. And that is what we need to replicate across Tobago. The idea that we have to inculcate not just a service culture. Service is basic. We have to think about what is the experience we want to leave with people. We want people to be able to leave our establishments, leave our hotels, leave our restaurants and say, look, I'm going to come back there because I had such a good time. I'm going to spend my money there again because those persons were so friendly, the food was well prepared, the service was excellent. I'm going to recommend it to my friends and family because every time I go, the service is consistent, and that is where we have to get to. The one thing that Tobago has above all other Caribbean destinations, in my view, is everything in spades that God created, whether it be sun, sand, sea, culture, events, you name it, food, people, we have it in spades. We just have to become more attentive, I think, to our visitors. We have to make sure that we roll out the red carpet the same way we do for harvest and Christmas time as we are wanted to do, and simply, elevate that experience for them.
And do you believe that this community projects is the beginning of really replicating that Castara model throughout the island?
I agree, because to be honest with you, even without the physical infrastructure of an attraction, every single community in Tobago has something that could be monetized by way of tourism. When you just think of the harvest product, and most major communities in Tobago have harvest, that in and of itself is something that we can sell, and we can build a model around that harvest where we are encouraging people to come into the community days before, and there's a whole ritual, there's a whole experience that they go through, and then they get to the harvest experience, and then they have the crop over experience. So you're talking about getting people into the community 3 or 4 days before, 2 days before, and having them immerse themselves completely in what the community has to offer. So they're coming for harvest, but they're going on a tour. They're coming for harvest, but they're visiting a waterfall. They're coming for harvest, but they're going and feed hummingbirds somewhere. They come for harvest, but they go and raise to goat, so that people get to learn the history, learn the culture of Tobago, and get to experience more. And that's what we have to focus on, experiencing more. Because when you come to the destination, it's not just about we go and relax on the beach, that's all we're going to do. No, you need to experience more, because Tobago calls to you, Tobago beckons you to come discover. And that is what we want to encourage, that people come and discover. So when you talk about Tobago, we're not just talking about Store Bay, because people feel like the best crab and dumpling in Store Bay, but they have a man in Roxborough who hand real sweet, and he crab good too. They have somebody in Golden Lane, he hand sweet too, them crab good too. They have some fellas up in Runnymede, them could bust a pot too. Experience more. So that's what we want to encourage, for persons to come and explore and experience more. And we have attractions throughout the island. We have attractions in Goodwood. There's a cross that marks the center of the island. Do people know that? The people in Goodwood might know, but the average person who might be living elsewhere might not know that. There are some hidden waterfalls. I went chasing waterfalls a couple months ago, and there's this beautiful waterfall in Lamy Road, Roxborough. Now, the people in Roxborough know that they have 2 waterfalls, it's Argyle and that one. But the average person might just know Argyle Waterfall. These are some of the attractions that we want to open up to allow people to experience more.
And this idea of opening up the new attractions and the community attractions, it wouldn't only just benefit the community, because particularly when we're talking about cruise ship season, it open a new possibility of attractions for drivers and tour operators to take persons on.
Definitely, because one of the set of feedback that we've gotten is that Tobago has a tendency to attract the types of tourists who don't necessarily like mass tourist destinations. So they more come from the UK, they more come from European countries, and you know, they want to go to attractions that feel more on the off the beaten path, so that they don't want to go to an attraction, have to fight with 1,000 people to take a selfie. You know, they would want to be able to go to an attraction, it's just a tour group of 20 people or 40 people or 50 people. And the more attractions we have, it's easier for us to spread persons across the island. And certainly, as I said, spread that cruise ship spend. So it's not just concentrated in certain areas. And because we have that opportunity to spread that spend, we want to encourage persons to get into tourism, to get ready for all of the possibilities that tourism offers, because we do have an airport to operationalize. We do have to go aggressively to speak to airlines to get them to fly into the destination. We can't simply just wait on a sandals to be built. There's a time between that and then what are we doing in the meantime? And there was a time in Tobago's history where we used to attract thousands of air tourists every single year, who was staying on island, who was staying in local indigenous properties, in addition to the fact that we, yes, had a Hilton. But I'm saying to the people of Tobago that tourism is a very viable investment, not just for the people who live here, but for the people who love here. Because the reality is that we are able to be part of breaking through that noise. As I said, Tobago is not just sun, sun and sea, and we are beckoning people to experience more. And if we can show them what those experiences look like, in 3 short years, Tobago October Carnival is up there, on the lips, on the hearts, on the minds of persons all over the world. And, you know, I had a meeting with the Canadian High Commissioner last week, and she was telling me that, you know, there's some bands who are launching in Toronto in an event coming up in the mid of June, and there are some bands that are doing some collaborations with local bands, so they're bringing sections for the Tobago Carnival. So Tobago October Carnival has gone international, so that if we are using that to start a conversation about what more is there to experience in Tobago, what better time for persons to experience Tobago than when we have a major festival going on. So the idea behind all of this simply is that we have to get ready. We have to get ready for the opportunities that tourism is going to offer. We have to be able to attract the most passionate people, the people who are most passionate about the tourism product, to be our face, to be our front line, to be the persons greeting our guests, to be the persons who are responsible for their experiences on island. Because the reality is that I believe that my people are the warmest, friendliest people that you can meet in the world. Where else in the world you could come in somebody's house and eat their food and drink their drinks for free, and you could be a perfect stranger? Only in Tobago that could happen. And we simply have to replicate that, and we certainly have to spread that success throughout the island. And I think that we will be poised for greatness.
Secretary, we have so much to talk about, but we need to go for a break, pay some bills, and come right back. So, ladies and gentlemen, viewers, we will be right back after these messages. But do us a favor, the conversation is going great. Share the live, share the live, share the live. We'll be right back after these messages.